So I'm gonna let you guys introduce yourselves.
Ooh. Starting for me? You looking at me?
Go for it.
Oh, I'm Johanna. I am co-founder and owner and chief operating officer of Polyculture Farms. I was born and raised in Los Angeles, actually, and I moved up here about 7 years ago. I had the opportunity to move to Northern California. I was working in a hair salon and a dispensary at the time. And I had the opportunity to move up here. I had the chance happening of meeting my now partner and fiance, Micah, who was on this beyond organic quest to grow the best cannabis with the most terpenes and the most resin that he could possibly grow without using any liquid nutrients or fertilizers. No pesticides or fungicides, but by making the soil better, by using a biological system. Being from LA, I really did not even think about any of this as far as, well, I said I worked in a dispensary. I asked myself, what does it look like, what does it smell like, and what does it do to me? Never what's in it, where did it come from, and how is it grown? My mind was totally blown when I moved up here and realized there was a difference. Not only a difference, but actually the best cannabis comes from these regenerative biological systems under the sun. I recently had a run-in and got gifted some really, really fabulous indoor weed. And again, I felt it, and I was like, it's not sticky, it's not resinous. And it kind of like just reinforced that sun-grown in biological soil is the best way. So I moved up for a month. I've been here for 8 years now, and yeah, so that's kind of my little story and background. We don't use any, like I said, we don't use any pesticides or fungicides. We use all compost tea and living soil. We grow companion plants and integrated pest management, and I think that in that system we grow some really tasty flowers. So that's me. Thank you.
I'm Ben Blake. I'm the co-founder and co-owner of Essentia. We are a farm in Hopland. I'm originally from Oakland. My business partner and I, Marley, went to high school together in the Bay Area and became friends in our teenage years, and then became business partners in this endeavor. And it's been a fun and wild ride the last few years in particular. We've been cultivating in Mendocino for a little over 10 years. Our specialty is really breeding and phenotype selection and strain creation. And we take a slightly different approach to this, where we do pretty much all of our breeding and selections specifically in the outdoor sun-grown environment. A lot of the main strains that have come through the market in past years, a lot of them have been developed in indoor warehouses, so they were selected in that environment, and they kind of thrive in that environment. You can take them outside and grow them outdoors, and they'll grow well, but they're not necessarily exceptional. And what we found over the years is that if you want something that is truly exceptional in the outdoor environment, you really have to breed and then do the selection in that environment, ideally like in that exact microclimate in which you'll be growing it. So we've had success with that. We've been lucky enough to win several Emerald Cups for strains that we've developed through this process, and we're huge advocates of sun-grown. We believe that when done right, it can produce the best quality flower. And we're also big advocates of organic, sustainable cultivation. We focus a lot on fostering living soils in our grow environments, and have found that that can just really bring out the full genetic potential of these plants.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
My name's Johnny Casale. I'm the owner and operator of Huckleberry Hill Farms. I'm the only farmer that takes care of the place. I grew up on the very farm that was my mom's house. I've been there for the last 40 years, and pretty much I was cultivating illegally back then, and now I'm a legal permitted farm by the county and both the state. And it feels really amazing to be sitting here in front of you today. I wish I really could describe how I was feeling, because this amazing feeling, all you should be feeling. And It's been an amazing journey, and I'll get into that more later, but just really happy to be here in front of you today, and all the strains that I grow on my farm are in honor of my parents who have passed away, and so I'll tell you more about that later.
My name's Tina Gordon, and I'm the owner and founder of Moon Made Farms. We're in southern Humboldt, California, at the heart of the Emerald Triangle. The land is at 2,200 feet in elevation. There's a natural pond at the top of the land. And when I moved there, and I'll tell a little bit more about this later as well, but when I moved to southern Humboldt and started cultivating cannabis, I had a completely transformative experience, and that was through this plant. And it was like an awakening to the natural world, because I just didn't even understand the environment I lived in before moving to southern Humboldt. It was like I understood the city, I understood what a park felt like, but I didn't understand what it meant to be in a park and why that felt good. I didn't understand living systems at all. And moving to southern Humboldt has taught me the importance of fresh air and clean water and living soil and what it means to cultivate and to nurture and to love something. And that is the cannabis plant. So I completely fell in love with this plant. It changed my life. And now I feel I'm in year 13, feeling in complete devotion to moving forward through this transition to be able to help not only myself and the farm and be a good steward to the land and the people who help on the land. And thank you to the Moon Made folks who are here today. Thank you for being here and representing and for everything you've done. But I also feel a deep desire and purpose in helping others get through this process, holding the door open and building bridges so that more of the incredible talent that is in the Emerald Triangle can make it through, because so few of us have. And that's part of why I'm here today, and very grateful to Flocana for bringing Sungrown to the California market.
All right. Amazing people. Also, my good friends. So good to be here with you guys. So let's get it started. I want to start the conversation talking about the uniqueness and biodiversity of the Emerald Triangle. For those of you that don't know, the Emerald Triangle is that region between Humboldt, Mendocino, and Trinity County. When you look at it in a map, you see a triangle. That triangle is the size of Ireland. It's big. It is estimated that 85% of the cannabis consumed nationwide is grown in the Emerald Triangle. That's a lot of weed. Yeah. And you've also probably heard, that cannabis can help with anxiety, with appetite, sex, mood, this, that, pretty much everything. And there's a lot of truth to that. And the reason that is true is because of the biodiversity and the different strains that we have here in the Emerald Triangle. And one of the things there's very few things that prohibition was good, that resulted in a good thing, but one of them was that the Emerald Triangle was untouched. And Big Ag never made it here, so cannabis was never monocropped. It was never touched by Big Ag. Hence, we have that big diversity. And I want you guys to tell us a little bit more about that, because you guys are experts on it.
Yeah, well, I'll jump in. Yeah, it's a great topic. Because we do so much genetics work, we view a lot of what we're seeing now through this lens of genetics, genetic diversity, developing genetics, and kind of looking at where this may go over the next 5, 10 years and even longer. And yeah, Flavia makes a great point. Just through the illicit nature of what the market has been, we have this kind of lucky consequence where there's just astounding diversity of genetics in the cannabis genome right now. And just to compare it to some of the other main ag crops, there's really been a funneling of genetic diversity in really every major ag crop. You look at like wheat, corn, rice. 50, 60 years ago, there was hundreds of varietals. Now there's, oftentimes just like 10 or a dozen that are farmed commercially and are really available. The other interesting thing is that for those, 10 or 12 rice varietals that we see now, they were generally chosen and have become the remaining 12 based on criteria that have nothing to do with quality, really. It has to do with like shelf life, how well they are processed through machinery. And so oftentimes now we have varietals that they're kind of bland, they're not very nutritive. With cannabis, we're at a really important inflection point where we haven't crossed the Rubicon yet and had that funneling of genetic diversity, but pressures are coming that will move things in that direction. So all of us here, Flocana, have a really important role to play in preserving that diversity going forward. So I'm looking forward to trying to be a part of that as we move along here.
If I could add just one other thing. Really good friend of mine told me one time, and it's just always stuck with me, that the Emerald Triangle is like the Amazon jungle of genetics. And somewhere out there is going to be a strain that sooner or later that we're going to discover, once this is federally legal, that can cure some kind of cancer or some kind of disease or autism. And so we got a pretty unique and very special place at our fingertips.
Thank you, Johnny. All right, that was excellent. Now, let's talk a little bit about the importance of community. I'm going to start this with a little bit of a personal note. As Jason said, Mikey and I moved here, but we moved to San Francisco first. We lived there for like 5 years. We felt like a little bit lonely. People definitely did not prioritize friendships and family. Everyone was very busy, and like I would try to hang out with people, and people would be like, do you send me a calendar invite? I'm like, oh no, I'm just trying to hang out. Yeah, it was hard. But then we moved up here, and I was a little afraid at the beginning, thinking, like if I feel lonely in the city, wow, I'm gonna go deep, rural, like live in a farm or live in a place isolated. And then it turned out, to my surprise, that I got here and people here, they have a totally different sense of community. They have such deep connection with having friendships, with prioritizing family time, with, being truthful, being genuine, that it was just very, very impressive. And we feel like that's definitely something that has shaped the industry in a very important way. And I want you guys to talk a little bit about how that sense of community has shaped the industry the way it is right now.
I think, I'd just like to echo in what you were saying, not being born and raised in this community, moving up here 8 years ago, to be able to be welcomed into a place that you're not from, especially place where people kind of keep to themselves, was really special. I am from Los Angeles, but oddly enough, I have a group of friends that I've had since kindergarten, and that's all I've ever had. So to move away and to be welcomed by other people, to learn this way of life, it was mind-blowing to me to want to be here, to realize what I was missing out on growing up in Los Angeles, to want to raise my kids where they know where their food comes from, to grow it in their backyard, and to know how that system works. I didn't learn it until I was like 20-something, and I was kind of mind-blown. So now I think as far as community goes, to have been a part of this community, I don't think as a small farm we would have made it through regulation if we did not have a community, a group of people supporting each other going through this. We were lucky enough to meet all of these guys, and specifically Casey and Amber, when we moved here, and start a cooperative, and that was how we made it through. So super thankful for community here.
Yeah.
And I can just add a little bit more onto that, if you
Go
want.
ahead, Johnny.
Just because growing up in southern Humboldt, you know, we were always hiding, and we were always very protective of being private about what we did, and we really let in a smaller group of people, and that smaller group of people became a larger group of people as you learned what group of people you can trust. And that wasn't only with southern Humboldt, that was with all of Humboldt County, with Trinity County and Mendocino County. And even people that we didn't know, you learned from friends what they were about, and you began to trust those people, and people would come for weekend barbecues and hang out, and we just had a really tight bond. It's really hard to explain it unless you're an outsider and you come in and you're like, what's up with this county? What's going on here? But so it was really challenging when Flocana first started to come into that community. They put a processing center there, and the community was kind of like, you know, who are these outsiders? Who are these people? But once we all learned, and once they learned about Flocana and what they had to offer, and that the single most thing about that company that they quickly learned was that they care. And they weren't trying to change who we were, or what we were about, or what we were trying to do. They were just trying to help us accomplish those things and figure it out with us, along with us. And Flocana has played a huge role in that community and the Emerald Triangle, and I can't really thank you and your family enough.
Thank you, John. Thank all of you. Yeah. Okay, let's talk about cannabis as a catalyst for change. Everyone's talked about it so far. I want to know what you guys think of cannabis as a catalyst for change as farmers.
Well, you know, this plant has completely transformed my life, and something that I've learned that's so deep that I'm applying to everything in my life and has changed my worldview totally. Because if we think about, let's break it down to what's happening with this plant and the healing, the wellness, the psychoactive properties. It's all from the female plant. This is like the most powerful plant on the planet, and it expresses in the female form, right? And so when we're talking about what this plant has to offer, we're talking about plant sex, y'all, right? And so we're talking about a mating call, and it is this flower's mating call. It's a very intimate situation. And what I think this plant encourages us to do is it encourages intimacy. It encourages us to get to know ourselves and to get to know each other and to trust ourselves and to trust each other. And how could this resonate through the world? And so how can this resonate from soil and putting a seed into the soil, and how you care for that soil and care for that seed and care for that plant, and then care for drying that plant, care for drying that flower, sharing that flower with someone. When they ingest that flower, how is that going to resonate through them into the world? And so that's what I've learned been the catalyst for me through this plant and through this flower. And I think it's like something, and it's something that I would love to see shared more with the world.
Again, just wanting to echo what Tina said. I think, catalyst for a change. Who would have thought 8 years ago when I was in my high-end salon in LA that I'd be sitting up on stage as a farmer here today talking about biological systems. So there's that. And the cannabis plant has obviously been what has been the draw there, along with everything else that it introduced to me when I came here. But like you were saying, the female essence and just cannabis in general, I mean, there's a place for the male, maybe not in the garden all year long, but he's around somewhere. But it's super, as a female, for me to go into the garden and feel that energy and to know and to give thanks all the time. Every year I find it so challenging because, you have this female plant and they're really just trying to procreate and to get pollinated and to continue generations. And then you harvest them at their most sexually frustrated time, if you will. So really appreciating that and appreciating what they give us. I think that is part of what makes this group of people and these farms so special, because everybody here understands and appreciates that, and that is life-changing. So hopefully we can get catalysts for change out there for everybody else.
Yes.
Just another little thing. And I think that this is something that I've been hearing all day long, and something I feel so strongly about, and it's about trusting intuition. And it's about trusting ourselves. And it's like, it's not so much about learning something new as unlearning everything we've been taught. And start learning differently, and that is through our senses, that is through our powers of observation, that is through the ability to love ourselves and each other. And it's harder to learn something that you've never learned before, like intuition, something that you've never been taught, something that isn't passed down to us. But this plant and being in the garden is an incredible teacher in this way. And this plant, when ingested, is an incredible teacher in this way.
Yeah, and I think Stephen Kotler said it, that there's evidence of how cannabis just like gets you into a state of flow. And part of that intuition is being in that state of flow. All right, that was beautiful. Thank you, guys. I have a hot topic now. I don't want to go too long on it, but we have to talk about it. And it's post-regulation. Life has changed a lot for you guys. You are now business owners. You went from farmers to business owners. There's a lot of paperwork. There's a lot of investment. I want you to share a little bit of your experience of what we're doing right now, like with it.
Okay, well, I'll just start it off down here as I think probably one of the smallest gardens in the legal framework or network currently. I'm pretty much a one-man bandstand, if you will, because my partner has taken on another job in order for us to make it through all of these licensing fees and everything it comes with to be a permitted farm, which I think, I really appreciate that in every industry, being a small independently owned operation is challenging. I think one of the things that we don't have is the support of a bank and the support of any other industry to get through some of these things. So for me, permitting and licensing has been, well, you go from being a farmer or being in the garden to dealing with water board, state regulation, everything. I don't know. My mind gets overwhelmed when I try to list off all the agencies. But it's been a change. But for us, it's a passion project. To be welcomed in this community. I feel like it's my duty to continue on to get through legalization, to show people how cannabis can be grown, to keep this culture alive, and to make sure people know there's a difference. And so it's changing and it's challenging, but it has to happen. So cool, we'll get through it.
Yeah, I definitely echo what Joanna said. You have to wear a lot of hats. And we all talk about this. I mean, I think we're all wearing at least a dozen different hats. You know, the farmer hat, the lawyer hat, the marketer hat, et cetera, et cetera. And it can be really challenging at times. It's also very intellectually stimulating. I love being able to be in the garden and then jump into, the boardroom, so to speak. And the swings between the ups and downs can just be head spinning sometimes. But
an emotional roller coaster. But I've also, looking back at other points in my life, I've had times where I was just working a job, clocking in, clocking out, and I'd look back at the previous week and there's nothing memorable that happened. And I'd much rather be living my life this way and almost failing. And sometimes being at the top of the world because you're succeeding, those kind of emotions and just being able to live life that way, I wouldn't trade that for anything.
Thank you. So I have one last topic. We have to be very fast. Maybe one of you guys can answer this question. And it's why is it so important to get this right? We are at the beginning of the industry. This is just starting, but it's definitely a very crucial moment. please tell me, one of you guys, why we have to make this right now.
Well, this plant is so important in the regenerative farming movement that's happening, and which is crucial at large. The reason why it's so important that we get this plant right now is because, as well as being healing in so many ways, it also shifts consciousness. And the importance of being able to provide plant medicine, and through this plant, like quality of life, a shift in quality of life, and enhancing quality of life, we have to pay attention to the quality of life of this plant. And right now is a time when more people than ever before in history are about to have global access to this plant. So we've got to do it right now, and it's up to us. It's our shared responsibility right here.
Yes. All right, guys. That was beautiful.
Do we got another
Johnny?
part or what?
You have 1 minute.
I got 1 minute.
Okay, 2.
Well, I thought we only have our whole. Okay, 2 minutes. 2 minutes.
You can talk as much as you want, Johnny.
Okay,
Johnny,
good.
take us home.
You get 10 if you want.
So I just wanted to touch a little bit more on what it means to have a family, friends, and especially community, because the support of your community is everything. And for me, growing up, following my mom around since I was 10 years old, growing cannabis, and interacting with my community on the weekends and sharing our lives with our community was meaningful to me in many ways. And to make a long story short, to make it quick, when I was 20 years old, I learned very quickly that there was a difference between state and federal law. And I ended up I'd never had a speeding ticket before in my life. I ended up getting in trouble for growing cannabis and was sentenced to 10 years mandatory minimums in jail. I went to court for 4 years. I did 8 years in federal prison and had 5 years probation. So this was a 17-year-long journey for me about this plant. And it was my community that was there through 3,000 days while I sit in a prison cell or a prison camp. And it was that community was there when I arrived home, and there was 50 people there for me to help me get my life back in order. And it's the Flaconic team now that is there for me, and these farmers here that are there for me, and for all of us. And as a team, as a community, we're moving forward into this unknown new age, new time, and it's a scary time for all of us. And without a community and without what we're trying to do here at Flocana and sharing our lives and sharing about Sungrown and our passion, I don't think I'd be up here today and being able to share this with you. So thank you again.
Thank you, man.